Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shota Deolusegun. This afternoon, we're going to look at the reality of consciousness. Now, this topic is very robust. Consciousness is a tool that we use in understanding and analyzing the phenomenon or phenomena in the whole of universe. So it is important that we understand what consciousness is. Now, based on the application of formula of everything, which is the T, the M, capital UN plus 4M, I've realized that to get the electron's mass real worth, we need to actually travel beyond the time energy wave model as we have it here. And that is telling us that the real value of electron is not even within the time energy wave model, which is the area, the region where even the uncertainty principle could be analyzed and could be you know this is the region where we could, if possible, because right now with formula of everything, there is nothing like uncertainty principle anymore, because we have actual value for wave magnitude, and even we have value of electron while even in motion. So I want to use this solution that we have from formula of everything to explain what consciousness is. So now, if we look at this, we have time wave right here and we have energy wave here. So time wave travels inversely in relation to energy wave. And what that is actually telling us is very simple. And this model, as we have it, thoroughly explains what relativity is all about. So it's saying that when time is scaled wide, then energy becomes low. So what that is telling us is that just as we have in relativity, which says that when time is dilated, then there is a, a, a length contraction. So we have that kind of relationship between the dilated time and the length contraction. So if we dissect this, we see that when time is scaled wide, it's actually referring to time dilation. And then here, where we have energy becoming low, we have contraction of, it could be a wavelength of energy, you understand? But if you are to look at this, what we have at quantum level is different from what we have at classical level. Now this region is our classical level, while this region is quantum level. And for your information, in case you don't know, formula of everything is developed to actually unify quantum mechanics to classical mechanics. Now if you look at this, once we put this wave amplitude in the place of this m and this m, once we put this wave amplitude at quantum level, we get the mass of electron to be 0.0000001432. So that is telling us that while uh, electron is in motion, the mass worth is very tiny, so tiny. So this is synonymous to that notion of atom being not completely empty. So we still have the mass worth of a proton and neutron inside the nucleus right there, that could constitute, the mass worth that we could have for atom. And so based on this analogy, we can actually deduce what consciousness is from this. Now, we have realized that the universe as it is could be modeled as chains of inverted versions or dimensions. So in my previous video, in some of my previous videos, I have explained what dimensions are, and I've explained, we have modeled that chains of inverted versions. And what we have come to realize is that before uh, before electron could be ascertained of its identity, then there is possibility for us to actually travel beyond the dimension of electron itself, so into another dimension where we now get the full picture of what electron is. And I think that is what this application of formula of everything is telling us, because the trajectory of that electron at quantum level travels beyond the limit of time energy wave to get this actual mass value. So now, apart from that, we have also seen that even by dimensions, we need to actually go outside the parallel dimension into the higher dimension to be ascertained of that parallel dimension. We have seen that, and so that is telling us that there is this cyclic interconnectivity of mass density and energy density. So this phase is momentum phase, while this phase is a position phase. So we have movement from mass density, because in position phase we get mass worth. And when you look at when the trajectory at quantum level travels beyond to get this mass worth of electron, this mass worth is injected into the system, and we know by having this tiny mass worth for electron in motion that the energy is being contracted at quantum level in such a way that it generates radiation in order to support the mass convergence for the expansion of the universe itself. So by having this excess mass worth of electron into that tiny space at quantum level, that actually accelerates the whole trajectory towards the central 0 point, which is singularity. And as a result of that, we have a continuous increase of energy, and that is what is called entropy. So now here we can see what quantum gravity is, and we know why classical gravity is constant, because the speed difference factor at quantum level compensates for the differences that could emerge from classical gravity as it comes down. When we look at this trajectory as it is, it represents speed, because if it were to be constant as we have for classical gravity, it has to be linear. It is not linear, but the speed difference factor can actually let us have that linear effect of classical gravity as it travels towards the singularity by compensating for it. I have explained that thoroughly in one of my previous videos. You can get the video to understand what that means. So now for us to now explain consciousness. Consciousness is a very huge topic, because let's look at an instance where somebody is, let's say there is Mr. A and there is Mr. B. Now, if Mr. A has decided to pinch Mr. B unknowingly, well, by the time Mr. A pinches that Mr. B, Mr. B will not immediately be conscious of that action. So it will be after the action must have taken place that he will now be conscious of it. And even it will take a short while before he could, definitely decide on what his next of action would be in response to that action of Mr. A. So that means that we are not conscious of every action that happens at immediate instance. So there is a kind of delay, and that kind of delay, we could see that in this time energy wave model. Now, by applying formula of everything, we discover suspension at the edge, as the edges of time energy wave model. Now, that suspension is what actually instantiates locality within the non-locality of quantum entanglement. So that suspension is very, very essential. So for us to have that kind of delay before being conscious of such action means that there is a kind of delay before one could actually be conscious of it. So now that we know the nature of consciousness in that context, let's cite another example. What if Mr. B is being pre-informed of Mr. A's action, then you know that whenever Mr. A is around, Mr. B will have prepared himself because of what he was being informed about. And as a result of that, that would make him to be in a state of prepare of preparation, in a state of preparation or preparedness, whatever it is. Please don't worry about my grammar. Okay, so it will be in the state in preparation for that forthcoming action of Mr. A. And as a result of that, if Mr. A should now eventually pinch him as he has been pre-informed, then it will not be as delayed as it was for the first instance, because he had already prepared his mind. So now we can now say that the response to action, to be conscious of such action, I think it has to do with mindset. So one's mindset determines how one relates to action, in order to determine how delayed the action will be for us to be conscious of it, or how not it will be delayed to be conscious of such action. So now we see that being conscious is very flexible, because when you are conscious of something, and one thing about consciousness is that it tells us a kind of fact. It tells us a kind of fact. It makes us to be aware of happenings around us. Now, another thing I want us to look at is the suspension that we have here. We have a kind of repulsive force that is acting on at quantum level, and as such we have suspension. We could see a state or a kind of situation of such suspension in in uh, in the event of where protons are being accelerated in a large hadron collider at CERN to have a Higgs boson. Now we know that when that proton is being accelerated to a speed close to the speed of light, then we have the increase in the mass worth of proton, such that the proton is not able to travel beyond or to travel at the speed of light. So that is telling us that at the edge of light speed to proton, there is this suspension, this kind of suspension that we have discovered here. So for every atom, there is a suspension at the edge of every atom. And we could see that kind of example in the merging of deuterium and tritium. Deuterium and tritium, they are two isotopes of hydrogen. Now, for us to actually move beyond the boundary limit of hydrogen, in order to get another element such that hydrogen's full identity will be ascertained, then we need to reach the deuterium and tritium. They need to have additional force that will conquer the repulsive force that is acting at the boundary limit of hydrogen. And for that to happen, they probably it could be like something that we have, that once they have, maybe as a result of a huge decay mechanism or a huge radiation mechanism, once they have that energy force that can actually conquer the repulsive force, then you see that probably maybe it's something that we have here, that they will travel beyond to get the actual value of what hydrogen is, pump that into the system, and then the acceleration will accelerate towards the nuclear, it will accelerate towards the black hole, which is the same thing as nucleus of every atom. So in that, as a result of that, the identity of hydrogen will be ascertained at the birth of the bigger mass, which is helium, that will be formed by the collision, which is the nuclear fusion of deuterium and tritium. So now this is actually shedding light on the reality at quantum level. And having that kind of reality at quantum level, we now want to use that to explain what consciousness is. Now, we see that our brain, let's say our mind is being predominant by subconscious. So it's like we have a very tiny portion of consciousness in that subconscious. And so the consciousness pumps in and pumps out. And once we have that action of consciousness or that causation of consciousness, we have the feeling of being alive, because it is at that point that we get to really, be at that state of reality. And it is for that reason we need to understand what this consciousness is. So now, if we're to liken that to what we have on the board, the tiny electron mass that we have in motion could represent uh, what consciousness is in the sea of subconscious mind. So now, but for us to really have the full consciousness, then the trajectory of of uh, of of our conscious action has to be beyond the limit of uh, has to be beyond the limit of uh, of time energy wave model as we have it right here. So we can see the consciousness of every man is beyond his mind, is actually beyond his mind. What I'm trying to say is that for one to actually be really conscious or be fully conscious of things happening around them, then that stream of consciousness has to come from the external world. And that is why we as a being, we are connected to the source. We are connected. We are not limited to what we are in this world. We are connected to our external world. So now the stream of consciousness will come from the external world by making the quantum operations to travel beyond limit and go into the higher dimension to get the actual value, which is synonymous to what we have in the exact value of electron here. So, well, the consciousness as related to mass worth, what we have on the board. Mass worth, we know it's a convergence of energy to form mass. And mass, the formation of mass instantiates the essence and the existential presence or value of every entity. So, since consciousness deals with the feeling of being alive, the feeling of knowing reality, the feeling of being connected to what is real, then it is likely to be synonymous to the convergence of mass worth that could establish the instance of entities' presence, just as we have it in this example. So in that case, what we usually call consciousness may not be within our capability. It may be something that we need to get connected to, even in the external world, even in the higher dimensions, for us to be fully conscious of things around us. So that is that. I believe that this video is quite informative and insightful. Please make sure you share this video with your friend, like and comment. Don't forget, this is a novel discovery. I'm going to put the link to my research publication in the link below. Thank you. God bless you.